Good afternoon, everybody. It is Steve Lookner with Agenda Free TV here to bring you some updates on the Greenland story and what's going on in Minneapolis and some other stories today. So we want to bring you some updates, take your comments and questions on the air, and tell you about any other breaking news that comes up. I appreciate our moderators. Here we have Beth Mythical moderating and Roberts May Queen and Ruth. Thank you so much for moderating over there on YouTube. Thank you to our our Twitch moderators, Idaho Star, Matthew Kohai 3, Surly Dev, thanks for being there, Linda Belk, Larry, Misha over there on X, and Kay Lowry Body is moderating over on Facebook. Thanks, Kay. And Margaret Riley there as well. Thanks also to Baron Crosswinds for the memberships over there on YouTube. Thanks, Baron. And also Medallion N and Medallion 105 and Oren Quake are members. All right, the first thing I think we're going to do is talk about the Greenland situation. As many of you, probably most of you know, President Trump for months has been saying that the U.S. needs Greenland for its national security and that the U.S. is going to take control of Greenland. He says it's going to happen, that the U.S. is going to take over Greenland. Greenland is part of Denmark. It's an autonomous territory. It's part of the Kingdom of Denmark. So there's this question of how's this going to all play out? So a couple days ago, President Trump announced tariffs that were going to start at the beginning of February on a bunch of European countries, including Denmark, unless it's agreed to negotiate to sell Greenland to the U.S. So there's the tariffs. And then there's this new story that came out overnight, maybe last night, that President Trump wrote a text message, I believe it was, to, let me pull it up here, hold on a second. To the Prime Minister of Norway. So I want to mention this. Hold on one second. Let me just pull a couple things up here so I can show them to you. So where is this all going with Greenland? Denmark has said Greenland's not for sale. Greenland leadership has said that there's no interest in becoming part of the U.S. All right, let's see here. All right, so here is this message that was sent by President Trump to Norway's Prime Minister. Now, this was, I believe, first reported by Nick Schifrin of NewsHour. He first reported this, but it's being widely reported. For example, Trump links Greenland threat to Nobel Peace Prize snub. EU prepares to retaliate. There's lots of articles all over on this. But let me show you the email. And again, Nick Schifrin of NewsHour. He, I believe this was a text message. And you can see AP says, Trump ties his stance on Greenland to not getting Nobel Peace Prize. It's a text message that was sent to the Prime Minister of Norway. Now remember, Greenland belongs to Denmark, not Norway. So what I have on the screen there is, that is the exact text of that's the text of the text message as reported by Nick Schifrin. But you can see it's in other articles reported as well. That screen grab is from Nick Schifrin's post. It says, so he wrote to the Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre of Norway, and President Trump said, Dear Jonas, considering your country decided to not give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China. And why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago. But we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. So that was the message sent by President Trump to the Prime Minister of Norway. And I believe he has responded. Hold on a second. Let me just see if I can get you there's reporting about response, but let me see if I can get you his actual post. If you give me 2 seconds here. Hang on a moment here. No, I don't think he posted after that, specifically. Store. So you can see here, AP says, Trump ties his stance on Greenland to not getting Nobel Peace Prize. President Trump linked his aggressive stance on Greenland to last year's decision. By the way, the country does not make the decision. The Nobel Committee makes the decision. He linked his aggressive stance on Greenland to last year's decision not to award him the Nobel Peace Prize, telling Norway's Prime Minister he no longer felt an obligation to think purely of peace. In a text message released today, Trump's message to Jonas Gahr Støre, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, appears to ratchet up a standoff between Washington and its closest allies over his threats to take over Greenland, a self-governing territory of NATO member Denmark. On Saturday, Trump announced a 10% import tax starting in February on goods from 8 nations that have rallied around Denmark and Greenland, including Norway. Let me show you also. Oh, in terms of that text message, Trump cites Nobel as an escalation in text to Norwegian leader. The White House confirmed the authenticity of the text message, with White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly saying that Trump is confident Greenlanders would be better served if protected by the United States from modern threats in the Arctic region. So the White House has confirmed the authenticity of that text message, says AP. The Norwegian leader said that President Trump's message to him was a reply to an earlier message sent on behalf of himself and the Finnish President Alexander Stubb, in which they conveyed their opposition to President Trump's tariff announcement, pointed to a need to de-escalate, and proposed a telephone conversation among the three leaders. The Norwegian leader said, did they post it on his website? Maybe I'd like to get you the original statement from the Norwegian leader in response to this. Hold on. Didn't see it on his X account. Let's see. Oh, I got it. Here it is right here. So this is the Norwegian Prime Minister's statement about that text message he got from President Trump. Statement from Prime Minister of Norway, Jonas Gahr Støre, regarding communications with President Trump. By the way, you know what I need to do? Does Wikipedia have a pronunciation of his name? Because I'm feeling like an idiot. Wait a second here. Wikipedia. I'm going to have to figure this all out, so I'm not going to worry about that. Anyways, pronunciation aside, the Prime Minister of Norway says, I can confirm that this is a text message I received yesterday afternoon from President Trump. It came in response to a short text message from me to President Trump sent earlier on the same day on behalf of myself and the President of Finland, Alexander Stubb. In our message to Trump, we conveyed our opposition to his announced tariff increases against Norway, Finland, and select other countries. We pointed to the need to de-escalate and proposed a telephone conversation between Trump, Stubb, and myself on the same day. The response from Trump, text message, came shortly after our message was sent. It was his decision to share his message with other NATO leaders. The Prime Minister of Norway continues, Norway's position on Greenland is clear. Greenland is a part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Norway fully supports the Kingdom of Denmark on this matter. We also support that NATO, in a responsible way, is taking steps to strengthen security and stability in the Arctic. As regards the Nobel Peace Prize, I have clearly explained, including to President Trump, what is well known. The prize is awarded by an independent Nobel committee and not the Norwegian government, said the Norway's Prime Minister. So again, he confirms, the White House confirms this text message. Prime Minister of Norway confirms this text message. I'm going to read it one more time. Again, the screen grab is from Nick Schifrin's post about it. Nick Schifrin with NewsHour. Dear Jonas, considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars, plus I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but can now think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only that a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. So again, this message was sent yesterday by President Trump to the Prime Minister of Norway. I'm going to take some of your comments about this. That headband guy says their boats landed centuries before you were even a country. OO2DO says easy 51st state. Hurry thinks if Europe uses its ultimate trade war weapon, US dollar is done for? We'll have to see. It's unclear how Europe is going to be responding to all of this. Debbie Hagen says, wouldn't Ukraine, Turkey, Thailand, or a host of other countries be more important for the U.S. national security from Russia or China than Greenland? Now, as I've said before, President Trump has been saying over and over again, this is going to happen. He has said it again and again and again, that the U.S. is going to take control of Greenland. Now, he has said this. So, I don't think we should be surprised if he makes a serious attempt to get it. Now, given that I'm not seeing any flexibility on the part of Denmark and its European allies, then the question becomes, okay, well, if they're not just going to sell it to him, what happens next? I don't know what happens next. But this is something President Trump has again and again and again said it recently, repeatedly, that this is going to happen. CJS lady says he also said we're getting, $2,000 checks? I don't know that he said that as publicly and repeatedly as he said this, though. Corn Dog thinks it'll have to be taken by force. Christine Kane says he will try to take it. All right, it's time for a poll question. Will Trump try to take Greenland by force? I know it sounds crazy, but I'm posting that on YouTube and Twitch right now. Facebook, they haven't fixed the polls, I'm sorry. Let me see what you guys have to say about this. Hey, by the way, thanks to Damon Melody and Octavia. Thank you. Thanks Pickled Witch, our member. Pickled Witch says Trump is going to start a war if it continues. All right, hang on a moment here. Thanks also to all of you for watching. Let's show you what people said in our poll. I said, will Trump try to take Greenland by force? YouTube is split on the matter. YouTube, 53% say yes, 47% say no. How about Twitch? 57% say no on Twitch, 43% say yes. Thank you, One Axe CD, for your support. One Axe CD says trade routes. It's about the channels around the Arctic. Humbly Resilient says, I would really hope he wouldn't take it by force. Jeremy thinks taking Greenland by force would be a very reckless move. LL says by economic and military supply force, sure. The anonymous prepper channel thinks he will use some kind of reason to take it. Barry says, I could imagine acceleration of global de-dollarization in the wake of the attack on Venezuela, threats of unprovoked force on Greenland and Iran. D. Large Alex says, I think we're going to make an offer they cannot refuse. One of our viewers just mentioned the tariffs. I want to talk about his tariffs that he said are coming. Although remember, there's supposed to be a tariff ruling soon from the Supreme Court. So I don't know if his tariffs that he said are coming on Denmark and other European countries, I don't know if they're going to be allowed. Depends on what the Supreme Court says. All right, let's talk about that. Thanks for voting in our poll. All right, so the poll ended up being 58% on Twitch. Oops, what happened here over there on Twitch? 58% on Twitch said no, and 52% on YouTube said yes. People are pretty divided. I mean, 17 hours ago, by the way, 17 hours ago, President Trump posted on his X account 17 hours ago, NATO has been telling Denmark for 20 years, you have to get the Russian threat away from Greenland. Unfortunately, Denmark has been unable to do anything about it. Now it is time, and it will be done. All right, here's the post. Okay, let's read his post. This is President Trump's post. Maybe I can get it pulled up from the rapid response account. This was 2 days ago. Here it is. Okay, this is President Trump's post from the Rapid Response account. Well, it's from his account, posted by Rapid Response, White House. All right, here's President Trump's post from 2 days ago, from his Trump Truth Social account. It's a long post. We have subsidized Denmark and all of the countries of the European Union and others for many years by not charging them tariffs or any other forms of remuneration. Now, after centuries, it is time for Denmark to give back. World peace at stake. China and Russia want Greenland, he says, and there is not a thing that Denmark can do about it. They currently have 2 dog sleds as protection, one added recently. Only the United States of America, under President Donald J. Trump, can play in this game, and very successfully at that. Nobody will touch this sacred piece of land, especially since the national security of the United States and the world at large is at stake. On top of everything else, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland have journeyed to Greenland for purposes unknown. This is a very dangerous situation for the safety, security, and survival of our planet. These countries who are playing this very dangerous game have put a level of risk in play that is not tenable or sustainable. Therefore, it is imperative that, in order to protect global peace and security, strong measures be taken so that this potentially perilous situation end quickly and without question. Starting on February 1st, 2026, all of the above-mentioned countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, France, Germany, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and Finland, will be charged a 10% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. On June 1st, 2026, the tariff will be increased to 25%. This tariff will be due and payable until such time as a deal is reached for the complete and total purchase of Greenland by the U.S. The United States has been trying to do this transaction for over 150 years. Many presidents have tried, and for good reason, but Denmark has always refused. Now, because of the Golden Dome and modern-day weapons systems, both offensive and defensive, the need to acquire is especially important. Hundreds of billions of dollars are currently being spent on security programs having to do with the Dome, including for the possible protection of Canada. And this very brilliant but highly complex system can only work at its maximum potential and efficiency because of angles. You know what? I don't even know how to pronounce this word. METES. And bounds. I'm looking it up. I don't even. So one dictionary says it's an archaic word for measure, meet. I guess it's meets. Anyways, if this land is he's saying that the Golden Dome weapon system can only work at its maximum potential and efficiency because of angles, meets, and bounds. If this land is included in it, the United States of America is immediately open to negotiation with Denmark and or any of these countries that have put so much at risk, despite all that we have done for them, including maximum protection, over so many decades. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So this was posted on Saturday. This was Saturday, and then that's 2 days ago, right? And then the text message to the Norway Prime Minister was yesterday. So this here was yesterday. The one where he wrote to the Norway Prime Minister, Dear Jonas, Considering your country decided not to give me the Nobel Peace Prize for having stopped 8 wars plus, I no longer feel an obligation to think purely of peace, although it will always be predominant, but now I can think about what is good and proper for the United States of America. Denmark cannot protect that land from Russia or China, and why do they have a right of ownership anyway? There are no written documents. It's only a boat landed there hundreds of years ago, but we had boats landing there also. I have done more for NATO than any other person since its founding, and now NATO should do something for the United States. The world is not secure unless we have complete and total control of Greenland. Thank you, President DJT. So again, the tweet about the tariffs was 2 days ago, and this message was yesterday. So President Trump exerting a lot of pressure this weekend about Greenland. Our viewer King of Denmark says there is a document signed by U.S. and Denmark in 1952. I'll try to get you some more background on this. But who knows where this is, how this is all going to develop. You never know when we're going to hear more on this. Give me a moment here. Let me take some more comments from you guys. By the way, the UK Prime Minister spoke about this today. I'm gonna play some of that for you. I will play that for you. If you give me a second here. Oh, I got a little video here too. Let's see. Old Mordim says our prime minister is still being way too nice to Trump. I don't know where Old Mordim is from though. Shopongel says, is Trump still trying to get everyone to forget about Mr. Epstein? By the way, most of the Epstein files have not been released. We'll keep an eye out for more on that. Build says we have a major military base in northwest Greenland. The U.S. used to have a lot more bases, I think 17, and I think now they have 1. And that was the choice of the U.S. to downsize there. The Ringus says 56,000 people in Greenland, they stand no chance. Our viewer Rulep LSE says, by Trump's thinking, the UK can take the US because they were there first. Paul Cosgrove says, another Falklands War. Hey, by the way, thanks to I Am Charlie. I Am Charlie says, Trump plays multi-dimensional chess while the world plays checkers. Thanks, Kerry Poteet, who says, interesting times. Thanks, Kerry. Thanks, Sergey for your support. Sergey thinks the reason the word meats was in the post was that it was written with the help of AI. That's what Sergey thinks. Thanks also Tecmo-san, who says USA needs Greenland to control the Northwest Passage. Thanks Beverly Bigglesworth, who says, is this something the American people truly want? Thanks Lidwine Elizabeth. She said, I didn't know Greenland was part of Denmark. If this all went peacefully, maybe it could be part of the U.S. if the Greenlanders wanted to. I'm not sure EU would have been as upset as we are due to all chaos. Thanks, Little Man Dude. Little Man Dude says, would he pay for it if he could take it by force? There's a couple ways you could interpret that, Little Man Dude. Are you saying you think he's offering to pay because he can't take it by force? Or are you saying if he took it by force, would he still pay? Hey, thanks to 09GT. I appreciate it, 09GT. We'll see what else we get to on this stream, 09. Thank you. Also, 1ACD. 1ACD says research zones of influence, then apply trade, oil, and defense, and it will be more apparent what is happening. EU is not in a position to do anything but object. U.S. Congress is divided on the subject. That's what 1ACD says. Thanks, Gary Fry. Gary says the U.S. is more than one man. The U.K., he says, as a Brit, UK and US will be allies long after Trump has left office. Greenland belongs to Denmark. Thanks also Cavilling Man, who says, I'm a Norwegian and I see our foreign policy as naive. Global politics is power and interests. Norway acts like a moral authority with little real influence. Thanks Lynn Downey. Thanks Lab 210 Mark G. Also, shout out, that's really nice of you, Alan Will. That's very nice of you, Alan. Alan says, the people of Greenland have free health care and welfare. Would they want to be Americans? Thanks also Stern42 on Twitch. Device X, thank you. Simp Nasty Scrimp, thank you. A little background here from Reuters. Greenland's history as a Danish territory and why Trump wants it. How did Denmark get Greenland? Greenland was inhabited by Inuit peoples from Asia and North America. By the way, most people, I believe over 90% of people in Greenland now are of Inuit ethnicity. Greenland was inhabited by Inuit peoples from Asia and North America intermittently from around 2500 BC. Around 985 AD, Vikings led by Eric the Red settled in southern Greenland, farming and building churches. Around the same time, ancestors of today's Inuit arrived, living as hunters and gatherers. They became the dominant culture, pushing out Viking settlers around 1400. Denmark colonized Greenland in the 18th century when missionary Hans Egede arrived in 1721, marking the start of the colonial era. A statue of Egede still stands on a hilltop in the capital Nuuk's colonial harbor, seen by many Greenlanders as a symbol of lost Inuit traditions. In 1916, the U.S. bought the Danish West Indies, now the U.S. Virgin Islands, for $25 million in gold. As part of that treaty, Washington declared it would not object to the Danish government extending its political and economic interests to the whole of Greenland, formally recognizing Danish sovereignty over Greenland. Greenland shifted from a colony to a formal territory in 1953 under Denmark's constitution, though Greenlanders were not consulted. Any sale would require a constitutional amendment in Denmark. Since 2009, Greenland can declare independence through a self-rule process, requiring a referendum and Danish parliamentary approval. Autonomy is extensive, but excludes foreign affairs and defense unless agreed. Greenland has about 57,000 people, limited infrastructure, and no roads between its around 17 towns. Relations between Denmark and Greenland have been strained by revelations of historical misconduct. In the 1950s, Danish authorities forcibly relocated Inuit to larger towns, marginalizing the practices and languages of indigenous people who make up about 90% of the population. Denmark apologized in 2022 for a 1950s experiment that sent Greenlandic children to Denmark. Okay, let me skip down here a bit. Greenland joined the European community in 1973 via Denmark, but withdrew in 1985 after gaining home rule. The U.S. military maintains a permanent presence at, I think it's Bitufik, I think it's pronounced, air base in northwest Greenland under a 1951 agreement granting freedom to build bases with Danish and Greenlandic notification. Denmark has historically accommodated U.S. military presence because Copenhagen does not have the capability to defend Greenland and benefits from U.S. security guarantees through NATO. Trump has said acquiring Greenland is a national security priority and that the U.S. must own the island to prevent Russia or China from taking it. The shortest route from Europe to North America runs via Greenland, making it important for the U.S. ballistic missile early warning system. Greenland sits at a geopolitical crossroads amid Arctic militarization by NATO, Russia, and China. The U.S. wants to expand its military footprint, including radars to monitor waters used by Russian vessels and submarines. Currently, there is little evidence that a large number of Chinese and Russian ships sail near Greenland's coasts. Shipping data shows most Chinese shipping in Arctic waters to be in the Pacific Arctic and northern sea route near Russia. Most Russian shipping around the Arctic is around Russia's own coasts. This is a little bit of background there, but I want to actually mention something else about what the Prime Minister of Greenland has said recently. If I can pull it up here. Where's this also an account where they post? Where is it here? I follow it. I want to get you some on what Greenlanders think about this. Oops. All right, hang on a moment here. So this is the official account of Greenland representation to the U.S. and Canada. This is Greenland government account here. Greenland and USA and Canada. This is a post that they made 8 days ago. They said, history does matter. Greenland belongs to its people. It is up for Greenland and Denmark, and them only, to decide on matters concerning Greenland and Denmark. The governments of Greenland and Denmark is very clear on this. Greenland also said 8 days ago, the government, Greenland has been a part of the Kingdom of Denmark for centuries. That has repeatedly been recognized by American administrations in the UN and internationally. Only the people of Greenland should decide their future. A vast majority of Greenlanders voted yes to Greenland's self-governing status inside the Kingdom of Denmark. This week, all 5 parties in the Parliament of Greenland repeated they don't want to become American. For 80 years, Greenland, Denmark, and America have had a successful security partnership in the Arctic. Let's continue to address the security challenges in the Arctic as partners and allies. So that's a post from Greenland government 8 days ago. Also, hold on. There's a new post from the Prime Minister of Greenland that I want to show you. Oh, also this on Saturday, there was a protest against there was a protest in Greenland and also a protest in Denmark. It was, I believe, like a hands-off Greenland protest. So let me show you something about that because the Prime Minister posted about this. Hold on a second here. Yeah, this was on... This was on Saturday. So Fox News said protests erupted in Greenland Saturday as demonstrators rejected President Trump's bid to take over Greenland. And the Prime Minister of Greenland posted about it. Let me show you here. So this is Jens Fredrik Nielsen. And he showed this. Oh, Premier of Greenland, not Prime. Oh no, Prime Minister of Greenland. Prime Minister of Greenland. So he posted this, some pictures from the protest against American pressure on Greenland. Let me just show you some of these photos here. So that's one. That's from Green. That's what Greenland looked like on Saturday. Here's another one that the Prime Minister posted. So let me show you what the Prime Minister of Greenland had to say about this. So on Saturday, he said, "The day is over. Strong emotions and clear solidarity. In Greenland and Denmark, we have shown that we are strong together today." There was also a big protest in Denmark over American pressure over Greenland on Saturday as well. Our protest, so the Prime Minister of Denmark said after the protest, of Greenland, the Prime Minister of Greenland said after this protest on Saturday, he said, "Our protest against our invasion of Greenland shows that we have a sense of responsibility and it's probably a bad translation. We have a sense of responsibility and responsibility is probably a bad translation. I'm very proud of you. I participated in the protests in Nuuk, feel limited and worthy of humanity. Thanks the organizers and everybody for coming out. It has been a touching day. Compatriots here at home and in Denmark have shown today that we stand together. Through demonstrations for Greenland, many have expressed unity and responsibility. It makes me truly proud." And then he also said, he posted a video. Is there music on this? This is a video he posted. It says, "We are not to take over, not to acquire, not by pressure, not now, not ever." See that? I have to figure out what is the translation. Is it not now, not ever? Is that what that means? Hold on. I'm going to ask AI what this means. I'm just trying to give you a sense of some of the thought in Greenland about all this, because I know that's probably something people wonder about, and I think it's important. But where is here? What does this mean in Greenland? Maybe we have viewers who know. It means Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders. This means Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders. According to AI, that's what that means. Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders. But again, this is this video that the Prime Minister of Greenland posted after the protest in Greenland on Saturday. We are not to take over, not to acquire, not by pressure, not now, not ever. Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders. And then he said, okay, all right, so this is a new post today from the Prime Minister of Greenland. He says, the last few days have been busy. The protest the demonstration is a great demonstration of unity in our country in Denmark. Many people spoke equally of their love for their country and their respect for democracy, and I appreciate that too. Fortunately, our support from other countries and leaders has been made clear, and still the support is growing. It's a great idea. It should not be seen as a threat. However, since Greenland is described as a democratic society with the right to self-determination. I don't think he means that the United States taking it over is a great idea. He's not saying that. The recent threats and tariffs from the United States are unlikely to change his priorities. Maybe he means, maybe it's a bad translation. It suggests our priorities. We will not be disappointed. We are determined to move forward with honest dialogue, mutual respect, and respect for international human rights. Today, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Greenland will meet with the Danish Defense Minister and NATO Secretary General. It is very important. At this meeting, it is important to clearly state that the discussions on Arctic security will be held in a way that involves us and respects our own responsibility for the development of the country. All right, anyways. So I'm just trying to give you a sense of some feeling from Greenland. All right, sorry, I want to take some more comments from you guys, but that's from the Prime Minister of Greenland. Put that video up there again. Hang on a moment. Hey guys, so I'm really sorry. There is a problem with YouTube. This has now happened 2 days in a row. When I create the stream on YouTube, I tell it, I set it up, I set it so that the ads, there are no mid-roll ads. And for 2 straight days, I have created the stream on YouTube and I set it up, no mid-roll ads. And then people in the middle of the stream say we're getting ads. And I go and check and YouTube has switched the setting. So this is some sort of YouTube bug where you set it for no ads and it switches the setting. So I just had to change it again. So now I have to write a note to YouTube. Send feedback. For 2 straight days, I have set up my live stream to have no automatic mid-roll ads. Then, but both times my viewers say they're getting ads, and I checked the setting, and YouTube has changed the setting to automatic. Can you please fix this? Thanks. I mean, it's ridiculous. 2 days in a row. So I greatly apologize. I do not run, when my streams are live, I don't have the pop-up, full screen ads. I've never have on the channel. But this is 2 days in a row where I have set up my streams to the way I always do. And then I check, when people complain, I check and it somehow switched it. So I greatly apologize, but all I can do is tell them. All right, anyways. Let's see. Anyways, I didn't mean to hijack the stream for that, but I feel upset that people were getting them. All right, let me check. I want to take some more comments from you guys. We got to talk about some more things too. Rachel Zinn, our viewer, said, or Rachel Jin. No, not Rachel. Michael Jin said, how long has it been since Trump said ask about Greenland in 21 days? I think it was a couple weeks ago where he was on Air Force One and he was asked about Iran and then he was asked about Greenland and he said, ask me about it. Something like ask me in 2 months. And then he said, ask me about it in 20 days. I don't know if it's been 20 days yet. I don't know if he really had a fixed date in mind at the time. Roy Zwart, our viewer, writes in and says, what Trump is doing with his tariffs is a form of blackmail. It shows he is delusional, and it shows he is just a little crybaby. Wow. That's from Roy Zwart. Oh, by the way, regarding the protest I just mentioned in Greenland on Saturday, AP reports strong opposition in Greenland to U.S. threats. In a sign of how tensions have increased in recent days, thousands of Greenlanders marched over the weekend in protest of any effort to take over their island. The Greenland Prime Minister said in a Facebook post, which I read you, that the tariff threats would not change their stance. We will not be pressured, he wrote. Meanwhile, Greenland's Minister for Business, Minerals, Energy, Justice, and Equality told AP that she was moved by the quick response of allies to the tariff threat and said it showed that countries realize this is about more than Greenland. I think a lot of countries are afraid that if they let Greenland go, what would be next? She said. Hey, thanks to P.A. Jeeper for your support. Thanks also Little Man Dude, who says, why would he pay for it if he took it by force if you can just rob someone you wouldn't ask first? He's offering money because he won't take it. That's what Little Man Dude thinks. Thanks, Mr. Liam S. Griffin, for being a member. 2 last names for being a member. Andy Taylor, who says, we already have military rights. Ownership allows settlement, massive econ, and housing market improvement. That's why he says we need to own it. That's what Andy Taylor says. Thanks, Katie Cat. Hang on a second here. I'd like to mention, yeah, so the U.S., has the ability to greatly increase its military presence in Greenland, just to be clear. Hang on, I'll show you something about that. Now, AP says Trump repeats false claims when discussing Greenland security in the Arctic. This is what AP says. Trump, discussing the security situation in the Arctic, says, we need that because if you take a look outside of Greenland right now, there are Russian destroyers, there are Chinese destroyers, and bigger, there are Russian submarines all over the place. We are not going to have Russia or China occupy Greenland, but that's what they're going to do if we don't. The facts, experts repeatedly have rebuffed Trump's claims of Chinese and Russian military forces lurking off Greenland's coastline. Experts say Russia instead operates in the Barents Sea off the Scandinavian coast, and both China and Russia have a presence in the Bering Sea south of Alaska. The research director for Arctic and Ocean Politics at the Fridtjof Nansen Institute in Oslo, Norway, says that statement makes no sense in terms of facts. There are no Russian and Chinese ships all over the place around Greenland. Russia and or China has no capacity to occupy Greenland or to take control over Greenland. Lynn Mortensgaard, an expert on international politics of the Arctic at the Danish Institute for International Studies, said that while there are probably Russian submarines, as there are across the Arctic region near Greenland, there are no surface vessels. Asked about Trump's claim that there are multiple Chinese and Russian ships and submarines around the island, Greenland business minister Naja Nathanielsen responded, not that we are aware of. Trump has said that regarding Denmark's defenses in Greenland, you know what their defense is? 2 dog sleds. AP says the facts are the serious dog sled patrol, an elite Danish naval unit that conducts long-range reconnaissance and enforces Danish sovereignty in the Arctic wilderness, is stationed in Greenland. It is a key part of the Danish military infrastructure in the inhospitable Arctic terrain. An international relations professor, an Arctic security expert at USC says, remember, transportation of this area is either by sea or by air. There are no highways. You can't basically get in a car or a Bradley vehicle or tank or anything and go up there. So they have dog sleds. In addition to the special elite forces, Denmark has several surface patrol ships and surveillance aircraft, and the kingdom is moving to further strengthen its military presence around Greenland and in the wider North Atlantic. As we said, the U.S. Department of Defense operates the Batufik space base in northwestern Greenland, which was built after the U.S. and Denmark signed the Defense of Greenland Treaty in 1951. Trump has said the fact that they had a boat land there 500 years ago doesn't mean they own the land. I'm sure we had lots of boats go there also. AP says the first humans arrived in Greenland around 2500 BC, traveling from what is now Canada after the narrow strait separating the island from North America froze over. The Norse explorer Eric the Red arrived around AD 985 with a fleet of Viking ships. In 1721, a Lutheran missionary Hans Egede arrived in Greenland and ultimately began efforts to convert the indigenous people to Christianity, marking the start of Denmark's modern colonization of Greenland, which formally became a Danish colony in 1814. The U.S. government recognized Denmark's right to the whole of Greenland more than a century later. The other thing is, again, the U.S. did have I believe, 17 bases in Greenland. Yeah, for example, I mean, you can just Google this, but I've seen it a bunch of places. But ABC News points out that since 1945, the U.S. military presence in Greenland has decreased from 17 bases and thousands of soldiers to 200 soldiers at one base. Hang on one second here. I think it's a pretty interesting topic. So much going. We never really talked about Greenland before on the channel. We got to talk about Minneapolis too. So one other thing I want to mention is that under the current agreement with Denmark, I believe the U.S. Has a lot of leeway to increase its military presence there. I was just trying to get you something else about that. But I've read that many places. Sorry, let me take some more comments from you guys. Getting a little caught up on everything here. Let's see here. Longtran says the U.S. should claim Antarctica. Nemesis says the U.S. can't just take other people's land. Kadosh says China and Russia have subs all over it. Also, it's strategic in being at the North Pole and where space satellites are. Crazy Waffle thinks NATO doesn't owe us anything. North Carolina girl thinks Greenland's birth rate will not support itself. They will need someone to help them. Rhiannon Stay says, very unfair to Greenland citizens. Yeah, I'm going to play a little of what Keir Starmer had to say next. Hey, thanks, by the way, to Saku Satala, our member. Thanks, Fox250R, for the memberships. That's really nice of you. Fiery Patriot, thank you, who thinks the plan is to make owning Greenland, which is already a costly endeavor for Denmark, I think Fiery Patriot means, too expensive for them to keep. Thanks, Alex S., for your support. Alex S. said, it's not just ship traffic, but also airspace expansion. Also, would Greenland be useful for rocket launches? Thanks, Goxbirds, for being a member. Thanks, Richard Williams. Good to see you, Richard Williams from the UK. Thanks, Alex, Brandt, Zawadski, and Pete 1987. Thanks, Christian Lindstrom from Sweden, who says, Sweden here, whatever happens, President Trump has tanked the U.S.'s global reputation. Don't rule out a Nordic confederation with joint military, foreign policy, and one flag in NATO by 2030. Thanks, I Am Charlie, who says, Trump has all the cards, he's always negotiating. Reuters reports that EU leaders will discuss options in an emergency meeting on Thursday. One option is a package of tariffs on 93 billion euros worth of U.S. imports that could automatically kick off on February 6th after a 6-month suspension. Another option is the Anti-Coercion Instrument, ACI, which has never yet been used and which could limit access to public tenders, investments, or banking activity, or restrict trade and services in which the U.S. has a surplus in the bloc, including in digital services. It's unclear whether the EU is going to take some significant economic measures or not. All right, should we show you some of what the Keir Starmer had to say? Let's do that. I don't know that I'm going to play the whole thing, but I have his statement today. Let me just, before I show this, let me just quickly make sure I'm not missing something else. Hey, thanks to our moderators who are here. We have moderating. We will get to Minneapolis, believe me. LB Prairie Dawn, Idaho Star, I Got That Fire, Matthew Kohai 3, Sarah and Surly Dev on Twitch. By the way, thanks also to Kiwi Polson from Germany on Twitch and Battle Him Finn on Twitch. Thank you for your support. Thanks also Kay Larry Body and Margaret Riley moderating on Facebook. Also, thanks for subscribing, Christy Claft over there. Really appreciate it. King and Margaret and Robert Rial II. Oops, hold on a second. Just going to pause this. Sharon Klassen Goslin, Michael Clayton, Kristen McConnell Gates, and all of our other Facebook subscribers. Thanks Linda Belk, Larry, and Misha for moderating on X. Thanks to our moderators in YouTube, Ruth and Leslie Ladyhawk and Beth Mythical. Big thank you. Thanks also so much to our Twitch subscribers, just to name a few. People like Wall Street and Shaggy and Amalian and Mr. Satnav and Bogan and CC. Thank you for subscribing over there. All of our subscribers, I really appreciate it. All right. Let's look at here. So this is earlier today, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Oopsie. Talked about the Greenland situation. But let me just do a real quick check here. Okay. Thanks also, Crazy Waffle, for your support. I appreciate it, Crazy Waffle. And One Accedi. Thanks, One Accedi. All right, here is this. Forward till when he comes out. Let's play some of what Keir Starmer had to say today about the Greenland situation. Just make this a little smaller so you can see it. I think this is going to work.
Interests.
Oh. Here we go. Again, we're going to play a bit of what Keir Starmer had to say. Oh, hold on real quick before I do this. One moment. Let me just get the head. Let me just get up there. Something got messed up here. Just fix this. There we go. It's not Steve. I'm just going to put his name up. Okay. I'll handle this while I'm playing it. Here we go.
Good morning. The world has become markedly more turbulent in recent weeks. Events are moving fast. And in moments like this, what matters most is being clear about the values and the interests that guide us, even as circumstances change. The United Kingdom has a long history. Our values were not improvised. They were built patiently over time. And while we are pragmatic in how we pursue our interests, we are resolute in defending those values when it matters. So let me begin with the United States. The UK and the US are close allies and close partners. That relationship matters profoundly, not just to our security, but to the prosperity and the stability that people here depend upon. Under President Trump, as under previous presidents, we're determined to keep that relationship strong, constructive, and focused on results. And that approach is delivering. Through sustained engagement, we've seen significant US investment into the UK economy, running into hundreds of billions of pounds, supporting growth, skills and jobs right across the country. Our cooperation on defence, nuclear capability and intelligence remains as close and effective as anywhere in the world, keeping Britain safe in an increasingly dangerous environment. We've secured good trading terms in key sectors, including cars, steel, aerospace and life sciences, protecting British jobs and manufacturers. That is why we take the approach that we do, because it delivers concrete outcomes in the national interest. I talk regularly to President Trump, and my team is in daily contact with all the key figures in his administration. These relationships matter. They deliver concrete outcomes in the national interest. Mature alliances are not about pretending differences don't exist. They are about addressing them directly, respectfully, and with a focus on results. On Greenland, the right way to approach an issue of this seriousness is through calm discussion between allies. And let's be clear, the security of Greenland matters. And it will matter more as climate change reshapes the Arctic, as sea routes open and strategic competition intensifies. The High North will require greater attention, greater investment, and stronger collective defence. The United States will be central to that effort, and the UK stands ready to contribute fully alongside our allies through NATO. But there is a principle here that cannot be set aside, because it goes to the heart of how stable and trusted international cooperation works. And so any decision about the future status of Greenland belongs to the people of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark alone. That right is fundamental, and we support it. Denmark is a close ally of the United Kingdom and of the United States, a proud NATO member that has stood shoulder to shoulder with us, including at real human cost in recent decades. Alliances endure because they're built on respect and partnership, not pressure. That is why I said the use of tariffs against allies is completely wrong. It is not the right way to resolve differences within an alliance. Nor is it helpful to frame efforts to strengthen Greenland's security as a justification for economic pressure. Such measures hurt British workers, British businesses, and the British economy. And that is why I've been so clear on this issue. A trade war is in no one's interest, and my job is always to act in the UK's national interest. That is why yesterday I spoke to President Trump, to European leaders, and to the Secretary General of NATO to find a solution rooted in partnership, facts, and mutual respect, because that is how strong alliances protect shared interests. The same is true on other issues. In the Middle East, we welcome President Trump's focus on sustaining the ceasefire in Gaza and moving on to phase 2. We are open to participating constructively in such efforts. On Ukraine, I can be brief. We strongly support efforts to bring the killing to an end and secure a ceasefire as soon as possible. We recognise President Trump's role in pushing that process forward, and we will work closely with the United States, Ukraine, and our other allies to apply pressure where it belongs on Putin. Finally, let me say why all this matters so directly to people here at home. In today's world, geopolitics is not something that happens somewhere else. It shapes the cost of energy, the price of food, the security of jobs, and the stability that families rely on to plan their lives. When war drives up fuel prices, it's households who feel it first. When supply chains fracture, it's small businesses and working people who absorb the shock. And when instability grows, it's rarely those with the most power who pay the price. That is why this government's approach is rooted in a simple belief that we must use every tool of government, domestic and international, to fight for the interests of ordinary people. At home, that means active government. It means taking responsibility for economic stability so that inflation is controlled, interest rates come down, and family budgets are protected. It means stepping in where markets fail, strengthening resilience, and ensuring that global shocks do not always land on the same people in the same places, the people least able to withstand them. That's why we've taken action to reduce energy bills, to freeze rail fares and prescription charges. But tackling the cost of living today also means engagement beyond our borders. It requires shaping the world around us, not retreating from it. It requires strong alliances, steady diplomacy, and rules that reduce uncertainty rather than amplify it. That is why our commitment to international law and to alliances founded on trust is not abstract or ideological. It's practical. It's about stability, predictability, and fairness. The conditions that keep prices down, jobs secure, and economies resilient. That is what active government looks like in an age of uncertainty. Steady at home, engaged abroad, and always focused on protecting the people that we serve. Britain is a pragmatic country. We look for agreement. We believe in partnership. We prefer solutions to slogans. And we will not indulge in commentary and gesture politics that harm the British people. But being pragmatic does not mean being passive. And partnership does not mean abandoning principle. That is why it's important to be clear about who we stand with, what we stand for, and where our interests lie. Now, this is a moment for the whole country to pull together, so I warmly welcome the support we've had with regards to Greenland and the proposed tariffs from the leader of the opposition. I thank her for her support. At moments like this, there will always be people who reach for the performative, who think an angry social media post or grandstanding is a substitute for hard work. That's an understandable instinct, but it's not effective. It never has been. It may make politicians feel good, but it does nothing for working people whose jobs, livelihoods and security rely on the relationships that we build across the world. So to conclude, we will work with our allies in Europe, across NATO and with the United States. We will keep dialogue open. We will defend international law. And we will use the full strength of government at home and abroad to protect the security, living standards and future of the British people. That is the approach I will take as Prime Minister, and that is the responsibility that this moment demands. Thank you. I'm now going to take some questions, and I've got a fairly extensive list.
We'll listen to a couple of questions. I want to hear if he's asked about Greenland.
With Chris Mason from BBC News.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Chris Mason, BBC News. This is clearly incredibly difficult. What more in specific terms can you tell us about what you plan to do now? It appears that you're ruling out retaliatory tariffs from the UK. Can you confirm that? And would you consider going to see President Trump face-to-face this week? Thank you.
Well, what I'm going to do now is to focus on our national interest and be absolutely clear that that requires us to be clear about the principles that we apply to a situation like this, in particular that the future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Denmark Kingdom, and that tariffs should not be used against allies in this way. In relation to the escalation, look, a tariff war is in nobody's interests, and we have not got to that stage, and my focus, therefore, is making sure we don't get to that stage, and that's what I'm doing at the moment. Thank you, Chris. Beth, can I come to you?
Thank you. Prime Minister, many people watching this at home will have been shocked and angry over the weekend that our so-called closest ally is threatening us if we try to stop him illegally annexing Greenland. Is this the most serious crisis in the transatlantic relationship in decades? And how can the US remain our closest ally when it's bullying us like this? And just on tariffs, you say they are completely wrong and it will hurt the British economy. But if Trump does go ahead, to be clear, are you telling the British people that we will have to take that economic pain? And are you planning retaliatory tariffs if that happens? Thank you.
Well, thank you, Beth. And firstly, to underscore your point, this has been very badly received across the United Kingdom. We're allies of the United States, and we work closely with them. And therefore, I'm not surprised by the reaction that's been across the United Kingdom. And it is a very serious situation. Our job is to ensure that we find a way forward consistent with our principles and our values and consistent with our national interest. And the US remains a close ally on defence, on security and on intelligence, on nuclear capability. We work very closely with the United States, and we must never lose sight of our national interest in that. But we must stand up for our values. We must be clear about the principles that we are applying here, and will continue to do so. On the question of tariffs, a tariff war isn't in anybody's interests. And therefore, what I want to do is to avoid a tariff war, because it will be businesses, workers and families across the country that will be hit by a trade war. And therefore, I will do as I've set out, which is to engage with our European allies, with President Trump. And Chris, in response to the second part of your question, I spoke to President Trump yesterday, as I think you all know, and I'll no doubt speak to him again in coming days. Continually, our offices talk all the time, but we must find a pragmatic, sensible, sustained way through this that avoids some of the consequences that will be very serious for our country. Thank you very much, Beth. Robert Peston.
Robert Peston, ITV. Prime Minister, your entire approach is predicated on the idea that Donald Trump is amenable to reason and respects the rule of law, but it's patently clear that neither of those assumptions are true. So when will you consider some kind of economic retaliation through tariffs? And will you talk to the monarch, to the king, about not going to America to celebrate 250 years since independence?
Well, Robert, this is a serious situation, and as I've said, threatening tariffs on allies is the wrong thing to do, completely wrong. And a trade war is not in our interests, and therefore my first task is to ensure we don't get to that place, which is what I'm focused on at the moment and will continue to focus on. In relation to wider issues, I don't want to lose sight of the central goal here, which is to avoid the seriousness that a trade war would bring. In relation to your broader point, we do have to remember at all times that it is in our national interest that we continue to work with the Americans when it comes to defence, to security and to intelligence. Our nuclear deterrent is our foremost weapon and deterrent when it comes to securing the safety of everybody in the United Kingdom. It's my primary duty. And that requires us to have a good relationship with the United States. But it doesn't mean, as I said a moment ago, that we pretend we don't have differences. We do have differences. And I've set out some of those differences here this morning in relation to Greenland. Differences of opinion in terms of who should decide the future of Greenland. I'm very clear in my position in that. And differences of opinion on the use of tariffs in a situation like this. And again, I've been very clear saying they're completely wrong. So we apply our values. And we seek a solution that's in our national interest. Thank you, Robert. Chris Hope.
Chris Hope, GB News, Prime Minister. Donald Trump says he no longer feels an obligation to think purely of peace. Is now the moment you must choose between the US and the EU? Is this a fracturing in your special relationship?
Firstly, I don't think it's right for us to choose between the US and Europe. And that's not a new position today. That's the position I've consistently held, as have previous governments, because we are allies with our European partners and allies with the US. And the strength in being able to keep both those alliances has served us well over the last 80 years. So this is not a moment to sort of choose one between the other. I have argued, and this is not an argument for the first time today, and I've spoken to European allies and leaders about the need for Europe to step up and do more in its own defence and security. I feel that over many years we've not paid enough attention to what we European nations can and should do in our own defence, and this reinforces why it's important that we do that in defence and security. And defence and security these days, of course, includes energy and resilience and cyber, as well as the traditional defence and security. Europe has to step up into that space, and that's an argument I've been leading on and making for a number of months now with our European partners, and will continue to do so. Thank you, Chris. I've got Gary Gibbon from Channel 4. Gary.
Thank you, Prime Minister. You say that Donald Trump remains an ally, but a lot of people would look at his behaviours and say he's not remotely behaving like an ally. Is there anything he could do that would make you think he was no longer an ally? Or is it just unthinkable? Are we totally locked in? And just one other, if I may, some puzzlement that those forces, quite limited military personnel that went to Greenland, that he interpreted that as a hostile act. Do you have any sense that he might have been misinformed about that in entire expedition?
Well, taking the second bit first, if I may, that is one of the things I discussed with President Trump yesterday in relation to those forces which were clearly there to assess and work on risk from the Russians. And so there's real clarity, I hope, about that. In relation to the relationship, we must never lose sight of the fact that on defence, security, intelligence and nuclear capability, we work very closely with our US allies. And it's in our national interest to continue to do so. That doesn't mean pretending we don't have differences. And I don't think anybody could suggest I'm pretending we don't have differences. I'm spelling out what those differences are, what our principles and values are, and how we approach them. But we do continue to work with the Americans. The situation in the Middle East is fragile. There is a ceasefire. We need to move to phase 2. We mustn't lose sight of that. In Ukraine, we've been striving for a just and lasting peace for a long time now. We're 4 years into that conflict. It is in our interest to work with others to bring about that just and lasting peace. The last thing we should do is to simply throw all that away and pretend that it doesn't matter anymore. It does matter. But we don't do that by pretending we haven't got differences. We do have differences, and I'm spelling them out here this morning. Thank you very much, Gary. I've got Kitty Donaldson from iNews.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The US Supreme Court is due to rule next week on whether the tariffs are legal for the President to use. Do you think it's worth just biding your time until next week? And secondly, I don't think you answered Robert's question, which was, do you think the King should go to the United States this year?
I'm not going to comment on the Supreme Court ruling. I think it's due out reasonably soon. But I don't think it would be sensible to simply wait for the court. It's really important that we act now in response to the threat of tariffs, and that's why I spoke to President Trump yesterday and to numerous allies across Europe, many leaders during the course of yesterday afternoon, Secretary General of NATO, and will continue to do so today because it's in all our interests to act swiftly in relation to this matter. Look, in relation to the King and other issues, as I said in my speech, I'm focused on the pragmatic response here, not the suggestion of others, and my focus is on what's in the national interest for our country, what is going to best protect workers, families, businesses, and I believe that's the approach that I've set out. Thank you, Kitty. I've got Craig Munro from the Metro.
Craig Munro from Metro. You spoke about the cost of living in your speech there. How can you be sure, how can you reassure people that the cost of living will improve in the UK when our economic picture is so reliant on an unreliable ally in an unstable global world?
By taking the approach that I've set out today. Some people appear to make the argument that what happens internationally is irrelevant to the cost of living issues that are faced across this country. I'm well aware that for all the volatility in the world, and we've seen plenty of that in the first few weeks of this year, the issue that is of central concern to families and communities across the country is the cost of living. Wherever you go in the country and ask people what their number one concern is, they will say it's the cost of living, and therefore we have to address it. We address it in a number of ways. Firstly, by taking the measures to stabilise the economy so that inflation coming down, interest rates coming down, and protecting family budgets is crucial to that. By being active where markets fail, stepping in on energy bills, rail fares, prescription charges, etc. But also by working relentlessly on matters that are international, because the impact of what's happening internationally on what's happening domestically is obvious, it's real, it's probably more direct now than it's been at any time most of us can remember, and therefore it would be to a dereliction of duty on the cost of living not to be engaged on the international stage. Thank you very much, Craig. I've got Jason Groves from the Daily Mail. Jason.
Thanks, PM. Your Danish counterpart says NATO can't survive one member, the biggest, seizing the territory of another. Do you agree with her? And separately, are you willing to join the President's Board of Peace, and are you willing to pay for it?
Well, look, in relation to the Danish Prime Minister, as you would have anticipated, I spoke to her on Saturday night. I spoke to her again yesterday, and made absolutely clear our position on who decides the future of Greenland and the use of tariffs. And we're completely aligned on those issues. On the question of NATO, it is in all of our interest to make sure that NATO remains strong and stable. We had a very good NATO summit last year with more members than we've had before, with more unity than many people thought we would achieve. And NATO remains the single most effective and successful military alliance the world has ever known. And so it's in all of our interests to make sure that nothing is done to weaken NATO. On the question of the Board of Peace, look, we're supportive of the measures that are being taken across the Middle East, particularly the ceasefire. I do think we need to press on to phase 2. We've indicated our willingness to play our part, and we will. And on the Board of Peace, we're talking to allies about the terms of the Board of Peace. Thank you very much, Jason. I've got Lizzie Buchan from the Daily Mirror.
Thanks, Prime Minister. The head of the UN says that he believes that the US thinks its own power matters more than international law. Do you agree? And secondly, if I may, you've repeatedly promised to deliver a Hillsborough law, but the...
All right, so I think I'm going to just move on from this. There's a couple more questions, but you get the basic idea. That was UK Prime Minister Starmer earlier today saying, again, reiterating the UK position that what happens to Greenland is a matter for Denmark and Greenland to decide. Greenland is part of Denmark. Also, you hear the questions. A lot of the questions are about, like, you know, basically, is the alliance with the U.S. falling apart? Can President Trump even be considered an ally at this point? So interesting to hear all these questions about, you know, doubts about the alliance between the U.S. and the U.K. And also, I did want to show you what one other leader said about this, about the situation. Ulf Kristersson, who's the Swedish Prime Minister, he posted a couple things recently on his social media. A day ago, a Prime Minister of Sweden, Ulf Kristersson, posted, "We will not let ourselves be blackmailed. Only Denmark and Greenland decide on matters concerning Denmark and Greenland. I will always stand firm for my country and for our allied neighbors. The EU will stand firm." Also, there is a statement here. He posted yesterday, the Prime Minister of, this is a statement from Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, and the UK. "As members of NATO, we are committed to strengthening Arctic security." Let me just get rid of this. Hold on. I have one thing I got to get rid of on the screen right now. "As members of NATO, we are committed to strengthening Arctic security as a shared transatlantic interest. The pre-coordinated Danish exercise, Arctic Endurance, conducted with allies, responds to this necessity. It poses no threat to anyone. We stand in full solidarity with the Kingdom of Denmark and the people of Greenland. Building on the process begun last week, we stand ready to engage in a dialogue based on the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity we stand firmly behind. Tariff threats undermine transatlantic relations and risk a dangerous downward spiral. We will continue to stand united and coordinated in our response. We are committed to upholding our sovereignty." So where is this all going? By the way, thanks to Pete7574K, who says a C-17 left Fairbanks 90 minutes ago. So for flight radar stuff, I rely, because I don't know what flights are normally taking off where and what you can usually see where. So if I see any that, I follow some people who really know about that stuff, and if I see anyone posting that they're seeing concerning flight stuff, I will certainly let you know. Hey, thanks to Pete7574K. Thanks to Express Investing from New Zealand, who thinks there's a big dip in the market coming. Thanks, John and Tonic, for the memberships and for your support. John and Tonic. Also, Crazy Waffle, and thank you. And let's see here. We're gonna talk about Minneapolis in a second. Benny Hill says perhaps the idea of an EU army appears more appealing. Robert Marlowe thinks it's time to end NATO, let Europe take care of itself. In the Weeds 97, our viewer says, can't help but laugh at the U.S. chatters in here thinking their cost of goods won't spike even further if these global tariffs are instituted. Then again, they call him Taco for a reason. Our viewer Onexander says, I think a lot in the U.S. forget how powerful Europe can be. They have deliberately been passive for decades, focusing on international law. Now the U.S. has burnt that bridge, and the U.S. will find out. Vang says, Danish reinforcements arrived in Greenland. Yeah, just to be clear, no one is sending troops to Greenland to defend it from like a U.S. invasion right now. There's been forces sent to Greenland recently. I mean, they just talked about this exercise here, the Arctic Endurance Exercise. But this is supposed to, I believe, the purpose of it is not to defend from the U.S., but it's supposed to, I believe, show that they're committed to the security in Greenland. Let me get you a little more about that. But just to be clear here, where is right here? This is from a few days ago. Troops from several European countries arrived in Greenland in a show of support for Denmark. Does it say? The troop movements were intended to portray unity among Europeans and send a signal to President Trump that an American takeover of Greenland is not necessary, as NATO together can safeguard the security of the Arctic region and rising Russian and Chinese interest. So the point of the troops going to, in recent days, of European troops going to Greenland, which is part of Denmark, it's not to like set up defensive positions and wait for the U.S. to invade and fight them off. The point of them going there is to demonstrate a commitment to security, because President Trump has said we need Greenland to protect it from Russia and China. But the point is to say, well, we don't need the U.S. to take over Greenland to protect Greenland from Russia and China. That's the general idea, just to clarify here. Bear says there's not going to be fighting, LOL. Jacko says it was to send a message to the U.S. Well, as the AP article said, there's also a message to be sent of solidarity among them. You might think hidden under it all is a message, but again, I see no sign that these troops are going there to set up defensive positions to protect from the military invasion. Stoned in the Wasteland says, if we can already build as many military bases on Greenland as we want, what's the point of needing Greenland? We can already protect it, and we already do. That's what Stoned in the Wasteland said. Thanks, Stoned in the Wasteland. You know, one thing we're going to get to Minneapolis. I'm sorry. There's been a bunch to talk about with Greenland, so I apologize we haven't gotten to it yet. So an opinion from, this is the Atlantic Council, which they are a group that does research and analysis on, I believe, international security issues. They are a nonpartisan organization that galvanizes U.S. leadership and engagement in the world. It's a think tank in Washington, D.C. According to Google AI, they say it's to promote U.S. leadership and global engagement, building consensus and developing practical solutions for world challenges. The website says they promote constructive leadership and engagement in international affairs based on the Atlantic community's central role in meeting global challenges. Anyways, Atlantic Council posts articles on their website, which can be really interesting. So they posted an article a couple days ago about this situation. They say the U.S. and NATO can avoid catastrophe over Greenland and emerge stronger. I'm not going to read the whole article. I'll post a link to it in the chat. But one thing I want to point out is the person who wrote it, Daniel Freed, fellow at the Atlantic Council and former U.S. ambassador to Poland. This is what he thinks. What does the White House want with Greenland, and what might it settle for? The U.S. has longstanding legitimate security interests in Greenland. Because of these interests, Washington has sought several times since the mid-19th century to acquire it. After World War II, the U.S. addressed its security interests through the 1951 Defense of Greenland Agreement, which gives the U.S. extensive military basing rights on the island, and does not question Denmark's sovereignty over the island or Greenland's status. That agreement served U.S. interests well throughout the Cold War and is still in force. So the U.S. still has extensive military basing rights on the island. But the Atlantic Council article continues. Those security interests of the U.S. in Greenland do not seem to be driving policy. Currently, notwithstanding White House claims of Chinese and Russian threats to Greenland, neither Trump nor his administration has cited specific unmet U.S. security requests related to Greenland. Nor has the Trump administration taken steps to increase the U.S. military presence in Greenland, which they are allowed to do under the current agreement. The Trump administration has also not cited unmet requests with respect to Greenland's mineral deposits. So what the article is saying is, it's not like the Trump administration has requested to put more troops in Greenland or have more bases, and Denmark has said no. The article believes, as it often does, the Trump administration is starting with an extreme position that is not simply tactical. Trump seems to really want to plant the American flag in a 19th century expansionist style. While seeking to purchase Greenland seems the administration's preferred route, it has not ruled out the use of force to acquire the island. Anyways, this article says there's an agreement to be made between the sides. There's a deal to be done. And the article argues that U.S. security in the Arctic is better achieved by working with Denmark and NATO allies, not against them. Anyways, the article thinks the alternative, the U.S. acquiring Greenland through threats or war, poses far too many costs and risks. The U.S. and the free world alliances it built would likely not be able to recover from the U.S. launching an aggressive war for the sake of seizing Greenland. Anyways, if you want to read the article, I'll post a link in the chat. But the point I wanted to make that article says is that the current agreement, and this is as our viewers said, as our viewer Stone in the Wasteland said, the current agreement in effect between the U.S. and Denmark and Greenland does allow for the U.S., gives the U.S. wide leeway to increase its military presence in Greenland. Thanks to Moral Compass, by the way, for being a member. Thanks also NeoTrips. NeoTrips says the UK relies on the US for safety from Russia and China. Thank you, NeoTrips. Transport says just let the US do what it wants. Helen Anderson, our viewer, thinks Trump is just like Putin and Hitler. Yeah, we're going to talk about Minneapolis right now. We got to switch over and talk a little bit about Minneapolis. Orbit Cronus says, quit LARPing, guys. You don't want this. Fred Flintstone says, so what's the real reason he is doing this? There's debate over this. Our viewer, Channel 13.2, thinks U.S. isolation will be its downfall. Okay, let us talk about Minneapolis. Maybe we can talk about maybe we can talk about Greenland a little more after we talk about Minneapolis. Hey, thanks, by the way, to Joe9611, who says the global order built after World War II is over, whether you like it or not. The world is going through a power and order shift for another 20 to 50 years, says Joe. Oh, thanks so much to Bonnie Goodwin for your support, too. I really appreciate it, Bonnie Goodwin. Okay, so Minneapolis. Sorry, I know the title of the broadcast is... I say Greenland and Minneapolis, and it's taken us a while to get to Minneapolis. I'm sorry, but there's so much going on with Greenland. So, by the way, Bender thinks the U.S. is handing over world dominance to China. I was going to read a couple more comments here. I like being able to read some of your comments. John Parsons thinks Europe is on the decline, which will continue unless they elect new leaders that aren't simply more of the same. Set to Chill thinks President Trump is not thinking straight. So, one thing I want to talk about is this incident at the administration is talking about this a lot, the Trump administration. This protest at a church in Minneapolis that happened yesterday. The Minneapolis church protest. I was trying to get the rights to the video. I couldn't get it. I was trying to. Let me show you something about this, though. Let's see. Christian leaders urge protecting worshippers' rights after protesters interrupt service. The Trump administration has been talking about this, talking about charging people over this. I'm sure some of you saw this yesterday. Several faith leaders called urgently for protecting the rights of worshippers while also expressing compassion for migrants after an anti-immigration enforcement protesters disrupted a service at Southern Baptist Church in Minnesota yesterday. About 36 protesters, says AP, entered the city's church in St. Paul during Sunday service. I guess this was in St. Paul and not Minneapolis. Sorry. But about 36 protesters entered the city's church in St. Paul during Sunday service, some walking right up to the pulpit, others loudly chanting "Ice Out" and "Renee Good." One of the church's pastors, David Easterwood, leads the local ICE field office, and one of the leaders of the protest and prominent local activist, Nekima Levy Armstrong, said she's also an ordained pastor. The U.S. Department of Justice said it has opened a civil rights investigation into the incident. Now, let me show you some of what the administration has been posting about this. Hang on. I'm going back. So, for example, Carolyn Levitt, who's the White House press secretary, said, I'm pulling it up here. President Trump will not tolerate the intimidation and harassment of Christians in their sacred places of worship. The Department of Justice has launched a full investigation into the despicable incident that took place earlier at a church in Minnesota yesterday. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon posted she posted a clip. You can find it on her account from Culture War Report. The Civil Rights Department, I believe it is, Civil Rights Division of DOJ is investigating the potential violations of the Federal FACE Act by these people desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, posted, I have been in constant communication with AAGG Dillon today over these events, which the Justice Department is investigating at my direction. Any violation of federal law will be prosecuted. And then Harmeet Dillon, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing her name right. Let me double check. I hope I am. She also said, she was talking to Benny Johnson today. She said, to those asking where the arrests are, Minnesota state prosecutors could have made arrests yesterday. The DOJ must first go before a federal judge to obtain an arrest warrant. Make no mistake. Pam Bondi and the Justice Department will pursue federal charges in this case. By the way, when she said she was investigating potential violations of the Federal FACE Act, right? AP says the FACE Act is the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, and it prohibits interference or intimidation of any person by force, threat of force, or physical obstruction, exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of religious worship. And something else I want to mention. Don Lemon, former CNN host and broadcaster, was there, I believe, streaming. He was reporting yesterday from the incident. And I believe some of the Fox News has said his coverage of the protests went viral. I believe that Harmeet Dillon talked about him specifically too. Oh, well, the White House actually posted this. Hold on. The White House posted saying that the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche said to Fox News, freedom of the press extends to a lot of different areas. It does not extend to somebody just trespassing and being embedded with a group of rioters and being part of the group that storms inside of a church. The fact that Mr. Lemon thought that was a good idea and then race away from it saying it was freedom of the press, well, we'll see. So could Don Lemon get charged with something? All right, so I want to take some of your comments on this. Again, I'm sorry I can't. I would love to be able to show you the footage, but I don't have the rights to the footage. I can't just steal the footage and show it. But let me real quick do something here. Here, let me show you this. Here, this is something more directly about it. But I don't have the rights to the video. DOJ vows to press charges after activists disrupt church where a Minnesota ICE official is a pastor. That is what happened. The U.S. Department of Justice said yesterday it's investigating a group of protesters in Minnesota who disrupted services at a church where a local official with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement apparently serves as a pastor. A live stream video posted on the Facebook page of Black Lives Matter Minnesota, which I'm guessing you could go see. This video is out there if you want to go see it. Again, I just don't have the rights to it. Shows a group of people interrupting services at the city's church in St. Paul by chanting "ICE out" and "Justice for Renee Good." The protesters allege that one of the church's pastors also leads the local ICE field office overseeing the operations that have involved violent tactics and illegal arrests. As I mentioned, the U.S. Department of Justice Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon said her agency is investigating federal civil rights violations by these people desecrating a house of worship and interfering with Christian worshipers. She said on social media, "A house of worship is not a public forum for your protest. It is a space protected from exactly such acts by federal criminal and civil laws." Oh, and here's a quote from one of the protesters. Nikema Levy Armstrong, who participated in the protest and leads the local grassroots civil rights organization Racial Justice Network, dismissed the potential DOJ investigation as a sham and a distraction from federal agents' actions in Minneapolis, St. Paul. According to AP, she said, "When you think about the federal government unleashing barbaric ICE agents upon our community and all the harm that they have caused, to have someone serving as a pastor who oversees ICE agents is almost unfathomable to me," she said, and she added she's an ordained reverend. "If people are more concerned about someone coming to a church on a Sunday and disrupting business as usual than they are about the atrocities that we are experiencing in our community, then they need to check their theology and they need to check their hearts." Okay. Easterwood did not lead the part of the service that was live streamed, and it was unclear if he was present at the church Sunday. Black Lives Matter Minnesota co-founder Monique Coulars-Doty said the DOJ's prosecution was misguided. If you got a leader in a church that is leading and orchestrating ICE raids, my God, what has the world come to? She said. We can't sit back idly and watch people go and be led astray. By the way, AP said the website of the church lists David Easterwood as a pastor, and his personal information appears to match that of the David Easterwood identified in court filings as the acting director of the ICE St. Paul field office. So that has gotten a lot of attention the last day or so. Storm Laughter thinks the protester who said she was an ordained minister, Storm Laughter thinks she's not much of a Christian pastor, and that much is certain. DK says, we're talking about laws being enforced. Does that mean the entire Epstein files have been released now? Oak Dog says, LOL, demonstrating at a church is now domestic terrorism? Let me see also, I think, did President Trump post about this today? He might have reposted something about it. Let's see. Oops. Hey, Truth Social is down. Hey, guys, is Truth Social down? Anybody else? Truth Social? Look at this. Look. Truth Social. Can you go to like Truth Social on Down Detector? That's where Trump posts. I don't see it. I don't see it. Can you? Let me just see. Can you go home? No truths to show. There's no truths to show. Hey, there's no truths to show. I'm going to post this. Anybody else? Somebody said, how do we get our truth? Is anybody else's down? The mobile app is up? I have it on one of my on my phone. Let's see. True Social. It says something isn't right. Try refreshing the screen. I think it's not updating. Because on my phone, it's not updating. It's not updating on my phone. Anybody else? Somebody says it's working. There's no truths to show. There's no truths to show. There are no truths available at the moment. The server is down. It says this breaking news. I got a pop-up that said the server is down. Did you guys see that? It said the server is down right here. Now you might say, well, does it really big a deal? But this is where President Trump posts his announcements. Wow. What's happening with Truth Social? What's happening with Truth Social? Hey, by the way, thanks to Marvo Marverson. Marvo Marverson says, when will the extreme left realize they have no rights? They ended January 2025? We, the government, will do it whenever we want with impunity? I think Marvo Marverson might be being sarcastic there. Well, maybe some sarcasm with Marvo. Thank you, Marvo Marverson, for your support. Also, thanks Stevie Augie, who thinks Don Lemon is getting just desserts after spreading hate for so long. I read they're going to try to use the Klan Act on him. That's what Stevie Augie said. Thanks also Joe9611, always questioning, who mentioned the Klan Act. I saw some discussion of that earlier. I'll have to see if I can find more about that. History, thanks always questioning, thanks History Buff, who said church pastor is with ICE. It wasn't an anti-Christian protest. It was an anti-ICE protest. That's what History Buff said. Thank you, Michael Hutchinson, for your support. Michael Hutchinson says, you can't walk with God while doing the devil's work. Guys, there's no truths to show. There's no truths to show. There's no truths available. My gosh. There are no truths available. Yes, I tried going on my app, and the app was not showing me anything new. It was showing me all old stuff. It says something isn't right. Try refreshing the screen. One of our viewers said, Sober Pal Grunt says, no truths is scary. All right, so we'll have to keep an eye on Truth Social. See what's going on with that. Let me see if I can get you a little more information about the church thing. So NBC News said when Harmy Dillon, Associate Attorney General or Assistant Attorney General, AAG, she talked to Benny Johnson, who's a conservative media personality today. And she mentioned the possibility of invoking the Enforcement Act of 1871, also known as the Ku Klux Klan Act, which was passed during Reconstruction to protect Black American civil rights. And she said whenever anyone conspires to violate the protected civil rights of American citizens, the Klan Act can be used to bring a conspiracy charge. You know, again, because I was looking to see if President Trump had posted about this, but I can't right now because there's no truths to show. It says the server is down. The server is down. It keeps popping up. The server is down. See, I'm gonna refresh it again. Right there, server is down. The server is down. Oh my gosh, the server is down. Trump left me hanging, says G Slayer. That's right. Hey, thanks Joe9611, who thinks the left are trying to destroy the West. Joe says Tom Homan was given an award by Obama for his deportations in 2015. In the meantime... Oh, did we talk about this? There's another story I don't know that we ever actually talked about. I think it happened a couple days ago. about the troops being put on alert? Did we ever talk? I don't think we ever talked about that. Hold on. Just give me a moment here. The reports that troops in Alaska were put on alert for U.S. troops to be possibly sent to Minnesota. Right here, look. Pentagon readies 1,500 troops for potential Minnesota deployment, U.S. officials say. We should look at the video about this. I'll play the video after I talk about it. This was widely reported, I guess, yesterday. Look. LCS Fox says all for show. The Pentagon has ordered about 1,500 active duty soldiers in Alaska to prepare for a possible deployment into Minnesota, the site of large protests against the government's deportation drive, 2 U.S. officials said yesterday to Reuters. The U.S. Army placed the units on prepare to deploy orders in case violence in the Midwestern state escalates, the officials said, though it is not clear whether any of them will be sent. President Trump on Thursday threatened to use the Insurrection Act to deploy military forces if officials in the state do not stop protesters from targeting immigration officials after a surge in immigration and customs enforcement agents. Mayor Fry of Minneapolis, Jacob Fry, said any military deployment would exacerbate worsened tensions. I think there's around 600 Minneapolis police officers total. And there's, I believe, 3,000 immigration and U.S. Border Patrol officers who've been sent there. Fry said if the military is sent there, that would be a shocking step. We don't need more federal agents to keep people safe. We are safe. Also, as I mentioned, U.S. Attorney General Bondi said the Justice Department is investigating an incident at a St. Paul church where protesters disrupted a service to protest the fact that one of the pastors allegedly works also for ICE. Video posted online showed a group of people raising their fists and chanting ICE out, while a church leader calls their behavior shameful. I reached out. There was one group, I won't name them. There was a group that posted a video of this that had a live stream of it going, and I reached out to them. And I said, can I get permission to show it with credit? Can I buy it? Can I pay you for it? And they said, basically, which I understand, they said that they were not letting people show it right now, giving permission because they felt that it was something like they felt that it was being covered. They felt that some of the coverage of it was unfair. They were concerned about how it would be covered. And I actually said to them, I said, look, I will read a statement from you. If you want, somebody from your organization, they can call in and they can give their side of things. I said, I'm not telling people what to think about this, but it just didn't work out. So I tried my best to get that footage for you. Sometimes it doesn't work out. So it's their footage, that's up to them. I don't, I'm not complaining. They can use it whatever way they want. They have to feel comfortable with it. But I did try. Yeah, I can't just steal it from somebody and show it. I mean, yeah, one of our viewers says it's all over Facebook and X. So you can find it. I believe it's on Minneapolis Black Lives Matter too. So you can find it. I'm just sorry I can't show it. But again, I'm not allowed to just steal people's footage and show it on my channel. So I was trying to get you like the whole thing so we could show it to you. So yeah, Jason Innocent said they were probably like Steve Who. I'm guessing they weren't familiar with the channel. But I did try. Let's see here. Here's another thing. Another Minneapolis story which is getting attention today. I want to mention this as well. Agents with weapons, this is Minneapolis, St. Paul. So agents with weapons drawn entered a St. Paul house on Sunday and removed a man who was wearing only shorts and a blanket as onlookers honked horns, blew whistles, and shouted at them to leave. The man was a member of the Hmong community, which came to the region from Laos starting in the 1970s after siding with the U.S. in the Vietnam War. Roughly 1/3 of the U.S. Hmong population are immigrants, according to the Pew Research Center. I was reading about that. I know there was a lot of talk about that incident online. Oh, hold on. My X is working. Yeah, Fox 9 Minneapolis had a story about Chong Lee Scott Tao was taken away only in shorts, Crocs, and a baby's blanket. He is a U.S. citizen. That man in that story is a U.S. citizen. Oh. So I think that the Homeland Security post about this incident, maybe? I think maybe they did. Hold on here. Hang on. I'm going to show you. There's a statement from Tricia McLaughlin about this. But I want to get you, I might be able to get you a picture of this. Where did it go? Where did my thing go? There's too much. I have a million things open on my desktop. This is the problem. Let me just close some of these things on my desktop. I can't even search for anything. Looking at 10 different things. Oh, I got a video of it. I have video of the incident right here. Here, I have a video. Let's play the video. Let's play this video right here. And then I'll tell you. So this person turned out to be was a citizen. I think this is the video, right? Here. This is from Reuters. Let's see. Let's play this video. Okay. Then I'll take some of your comments about it. Okay, right here. ICE agents, St. Paul, Minnesota, yesterday. ICE agents continue raids and detentions in Minnesota despite heckling and honking by onlookers. There's the man.
You guys are fucking
Okay, so you saw the man being walked out in shorts and Crocs and like a blanket. Okay, now, if I have this right, I believe that is the incident. If I have it right, hold on. Let me just make sure that that's the same incident. Yes, because Fox 9 says that an elderly citizen was taken in shorts and Crocs. Fox 9, and then they have a video of it, and it's the same guy. So that's the same incident. And Fox 9 says this was actually a citizen, Chong Lee Scott Thao. Now let me show you what Tricia McLaughlin said from Here's what Tricia McLaughlin said from Homeland Security spokesperson about this incident. She posted about this today, and she said, I'm pulling it on the screen right now for you. Oopsie. She said, yesterday in St. Paul, ICE conducted a targeted operation of 2 convicted sex offenders. One of the criminal targets had convictions for sex with a minor and sexual assault. The other target had convictions for sex assault with penetration in the first degree, domestic violence, and violating a protective order. Both also have convictions for failure to register as sex offenders. They both have final orders of removal from an immigration judge. The U.S. citizen lives with these 2 convicted sex offenders at the site of the operation. The individual refused to be fingerprinted or facially ID'd. He matched the description of the targets. As with any law enforcement agency, it is standard protocol to hold all individuals in a house of an operation for safety of the public in law enforcement. Both of these sexual predators remain at large in St. Paul. We will be providing the public with photos and descriptors to help us locate and apprehend these public safety threats. So they said that citizen who they took into custody lived with these 2 people they're looking for, and said he refused to be fingerprinted or facially ID'd, and he matched the description of the targets. And again, just to show you the video from Reuters of that incident, it's right here. I'll show you in a second. Here it is. Here's the incident in St. Paul. Okay. Now, King Seren said they let him go an hour later and abandoned him on the road. That I had not heard. And then I think, so is these the 2 people they were looking for? Because a couple hours ago, after she posted the other thing and said there were 2 people they were looking for, and that man matched the description. So I don't know. Remember she said earlier that Tricia McLaughlin said earlier, it was like 5 hours ago, that the man they took into custody lives with the 2 convicted sex offenders and matched the description of the targets. And then she posted this. I assume these are the 2 targets right here. I'm assuming. Now, Firestar thus says the guy looks nothing like them. Seems maybe older than they are. Again, I'm assuming those are the two targets. I'm not positive, but she posted that after the other post. So that's gotten a bunch of attention today. Sharking Lee says 100% identical to both of them. I think Sharking Lee is joking. She also said, though, she said they match the description, but she also said it is standard protocol to hold all individuals in a house of an operation for safety of the public and law enforcement. So it's almost like there she gives a different reason for taking him into custody than here. Karl-Heinz Riedler thinks the administration will not acknowledge any mistakes, large or small. I was going to show you the video also about the troops. Guys, we read that story from Reuters about 1,500 U.S. troops being put on alert for possible deployment in Minnesota. So I was going to just show you this. Oh, before I do, thanks to I Am Charlie for your support. Thanks, I Am Charlie. Thanks, Michael Hutchinson, who says maybe Greenlanders or Iranians hacked Truth Social. Thanks also, it's Mikhail for being a member. Let me check, is Truth Social working again? Guys, Truth Social. Hey, Truth Social I think is fixed. Is it fixed? I can see Truth Social, but I'm not seeing... Is anyone getting new posts on Truth Social? I feel like I can, it's up, but I'm not necessarily seeing anything new there. All the posts I'm seeing on Truth Social are like an hour old. So I don't know if something's still wrong with it. I mean, I'm just posts in general, not just posts from Trump. Oh, Gateway Pundit has one for 28 minutes ago. That's true. All right, maybe it's fixed. Maybe it's fixed now. All right. Trump on Truth Social reposted someone who said they wanted to see Don Lemon get 40 years in prison a person who wanted to see Don Lemon and the people who broke into that church and did that during services. Somebody wanted to see them getting 40 years in prison, and Donald Trump reposted that. All right, sorry. Let me, guys, I want to play you this video. Let's watch the video about the troops, 1,500 troops being put on alert to possibly deploy to Minnesota.
The Pentagon has ordered 1,500 active-duty soldiers to prepare for a possible deployment to Minnesota, two U.S. officials told Reuters on Sunday. That follows a threat by President Donald Trump to use the Insurrection Act to quell protests there against the government's deportation drive. The Army placed the units on prepare-to-deploy orders in case violence in the Midwestern state escalates, the officials said, though it was not clear whether any of them would be sent. The soldiers subject to deployment specialize in cold weather operations, according to the officials. They're assigned to Army infantry battalions under the 11th Airborne Division based in Alaska, seen here in previously released Defense Department footage. The Pentagon and the White House did not immediately respond to Reuters' requests for comment on the order. It was first reported by ABC News. Trump on Thursday had warned Minnesota officials to stop protesters from targeting Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE, agents. Otherwise, he said in a social media post, quote, "I will institute the Insurrection Act." The federal law gives the president the power to deploy the military or federalize National Guard troops to stop domestic uprisings. But the president can deploy active duty forces for certain domestic purposes, such as protecting federal property, even without invoking the act. In addition, the Pentagon could also attempt to deploy newly created National Guard Rapid Response Forces for civil disturbances. Trump has sent nearly 3,000 federal agents from ICE and Border Patrol to Minneapolis and neighboring St. Paul since early last week. Confrontations between residents and the officers have intensified since an ICE agent shot dead U.S. citizen Renee Good on January the 7th. Local leaders have accused the Republican president of federal overreach and of exaggerating isolated episodes of violence to justify sending in troops.
Some of our viewers think the troops are not going to Minnesota. Some of our viewers think they're going to Greenland. Jamie Dodd says, "You mean Greenland?" Ben Van says, is that where they're really going? Minnesota? Let's see here. Tucker White says, "Free Minnesota and Greenland." That would obviously be a huge deal if he sent troops to either place. By the way, hold on a second here. Oh, I probably said this wrong. Hold on. Let's see. Our viewer, Tricia Duke, said in the word HMONG, it's pronounced with a silent H, like mom, or something like that. I believe that's right. I looked it up in the dictionary. It says silent H, no H there. So sorry about the mispronunciation. Thanks, Tricia. Thanks, Trina Duke. Sober Pal Grunt thinks it would be cool if they went to Minnesota, but they won't. Dodo Bird says, "Mr. President, it's time." J Max says, "This is why citizens need the Second Amendment, a tyrannical government." Super 666 player says 1,500 cold weather troops are not going to Minneapolis. Greenland. I said, we were talking about Greenland a bunch earlier in the stream. I said a couple weeks ago, is there any world in which President Trump sends some sort of small military dispatch to Greenland and they plant a flag in the ground and they say, "It's ours now." And that's just like, it just makes the declaration. Just declares it. I don't know. With no agreement from anyone. As I said, President Trump announced that the Gulf of Mexico is now the Gulf of America. There was no agreement reached with anybody about it. All right, hang on a moment here. I did want to mention the Spain train crash too. It's terrible. I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Hey, thanks always questioning for your support. Who says people need to scan Megan's Law website before they disrupt operations. Also, thanks to Jerry Kovacs, who talks about how cold it is in Montana. Our viewer, Char, doesn't think NATO will allow the U.S. to just take it over. Chowder thinks this Greenland thing feels like a prank or a flex of power. My point is, you know, you hear, well, President Trump, he said that he wants to buy it. If he doesn't buy it, maybe he'll try to take it by force. But what about the option where President Trump just starts acting like it belongs to the U.S.? Maybe starts, basically just you declare it's part of the U.S., maybe you start sending some Americans over there to start building some small, you know, buildings and stuff, and just acting like it's part of the U.S. And it's basically like, stop me, you know, and seeing if anybody stops you. I don't know what would happen, but that's an option. That's an option. The only two options aren't invade or buy it. Right, that's why I brought up the Gulf of America, because there was no agreement with anyone over it. It just start doing it. So that's why, you know, when people say, oh, the 1,500 troops that they say might be going to Minnesota, maybe they'll go to Greenland. Now, I'm not saying they're going to. I have no information saying they will. But I don't know what's going to happen. But that would be a way of doing it without, you know, having a big war. And you just see what people do. Devotee says that is an invasion. But it's not, you know, sending a giant force or something. I mean, it'd be obviously a huge deal if it happened. All right, let's, you know, I want to mention also, hold on a second. People have been sending me things. Shout out to our moderators, by the way. We have moderating Roberts May Queen. Thank you. Kay Lowry Body, Paul Anderson. Thanks for moderating over Facebook. On Facebook, Margaret Riley, Linda Belk Larry, Misha on X. Hang on a moment here. Trying to thank everybody. Oh, thanks to Kristen McConnell Gates for the Facebook stars. Thanks, Kristen. On Twitch, LB Prairie on Idaho Star, Matthew Kohai 3, Surly Dev. Cereal Snacks thinks Europe is passive and wouldn't do anything if the U.S. took Greenland. They are too weak. Christy Claff says he would be putting our troops' lives at stake. Helen Anderson says there are already Danish military there and more would come. Let's talk for a second about this terrible, there was a terrible train crash in Spain. And last I saw, the train, like it wasn't even on it was one train derailed. It's two high-speed trains and one train derailed and collided with the other one. One of them was going to Madrid, I think from Malaga. And the other one was going the other direction. And they collided and it was a straightaway. I was reading that both trains were under the speed limit. BBC had an update last night where it said both trains were under the speed limit. It was not on a curve, it was on a straightaway. They didn't think it was human error, because if it were human error, like, the train has systems that could correct that. So there's this question of what actually caused this to happen. It's awful. Dozens of people were killed. The toll kept going up and up. Let me give you the latest on that. Really terrible. Oh, look at this. Investigators find broken joint on track at Spanish rail crash site. Experts probing the cause of the derailment, which killed at least 39 people, found a broken joint on the rails. Technicians on site analyzing the rails, says Reuters, identified some wear on the joint between sections of rail, which known as a fish plate, which they said showed the fault had been there for some time. They found that the faulty joint created a gap between the rail sections that widened as trains continued to travel on the track. The source said technicians believe the faulty joint is the key to identifying the precise cause of the accident. I'm just seeing this now myself. The derailed carriages smashed into an oncoming train, pushing it off the tracks and down an embankment in one of the worst train disasters in Europe in modern times. I'm going to show you the video for this, of the video that goes with this article. The first carriages of the train operated by Spanish firm Irio drove over the gap in the rails, but the eighth and last carriage derailed, bringing with it the seventh and sixth carriages, the person said. Hang on a moment here. You can see this was a post from the Civil Guard of Spain about this morning. Look at that. They're looking very closely at the tracks. And the overturned train. Hack says that train crash was terrible. Look at that right there. This was in Spain, and I believe, hold on a second. Wasn't one of them going from Malaga to Madrid? AP says the death toll is 40. Authorities fear more bodies could be found. Yes, the tail end of a train, says AP, that was going from the city of Malaga to the capital Madrid went off the rails, and that train smashed into an incoming train going from Madrid to Huelva, another southern Spanish city. Here is some more on that. Hold on. I'm going to show you right now. If I can pull it up here. Hang on. All right, here is the video about the train crash that Reuters posted to go with that article. If I can fit it on the screen. If I can fit it on the screen, I will. Sorry.
Police footage taken on Monday shows the sheer scale of a high-speed train derailment and crash with an oncoming train. Dozens of people were killed and over 100 injured on Sunday, making it one of the worst railway accidents in Europe in 80 years. Experts probing the cause of the accident found a broken joint on the rails, according to a source briefed on initial investigations into the disaster. Technicians on site analysing the rails identified some wear on the joint between sections of the rail, known as a fishplate, which they said showed the fault had been there for some time, the source said. They found that the faulty joint created a gap between the rail sections that widened as trains continued to travel on the track. Earlier, Spain's Transport Minister Oscar Puente said a derailment on a well-maintained stretch of track was tremendously strange and had confounded experts. Anna survived the crash along with her sister.
Some people were fine and others were really bad. And we had them in front of us and you could see them dying and you could do nothing. I was on this side and I started to go up and I thought it wasn't normal. I travel a lot by train. That's where I looked at my sister. I looked for her and it's the last moment I remember before it all went dark. Suddenly I only heard yelling.
Spain's President Álvaro Fernández Heredia said on local radio that the collision happened about 20 seconds after the derailment, so there was no time to activate an emergency brake, and that human error is practically ruled out. While Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez vowed absolute transparency in the train crash investigation. Ministers, officials and locals paid tribute to those killed and injured with a minute of silence. Problems with infrastructure on that stretch of track, from signalling failures to issues with overhead power lines, have caused delays to high-speed trains 10 times since 2022. That's according to a Reuters review of state-owned rail infrastructure administrator Adif's X account. Police footage.
So really horrible, obviously, accident. Then you wonder, like, I mean, so you got to wonder, like, are there any other places with the same issue on the track? I don't know how they check that. But if it happened there, could there be another place on the track somewhere with that same problem? But really bad. Again, one train was going to Madrid, the other was coming from Madrid. And AP says it's 40 people dead now, and that could go higher. Oh, so Sign of the Times says they have rail cars that do inspection. So why wasn't this caught, though? Why? How could this happen? What I'm going to check here. This sounds like an AI question, maybe. How do check for these kind of issues normally? I did not ride one of those high-speed trains, but I did take trains when I was in Madrid. Yes, I did. Google AI says most modern railways use dedicated inspection trains that carry advanced sensors to scan the track while moving at high speeds. Interesting. So why didn't it catch this? Also, manual checks are still a regulatory requirement, especially on high-speed lines, says Google AI. One other thing Gemini AI says, if you look from what's being reported about this crash, The fact that that joint failure was supposedly there for some time, they say it suggests one of three things: inspection failure, rapid deterioration, that the metal would fatigue much faster than the maintenance cycle predicted, or installation error. The joint might not have been correctly tensioned during the renovation in May. The railway track was completely renovated last May, that track. So condolences, obviously, to the families of everybody killed in that, and thoughts with everybody injured. It was terrible. I wanted to mention that. Orbit Cronus, our viewer, says, I believe the train disaster was due to human error. Spain has done nothing to warrant an act of sabotage. Yeah, I saw some talk online saying, could this be some sort of sabotage? I'm not seeing that. I haven't seen anything I would consider, reliable, suggesting. I haven't seen any kind of reliable reporting that the thought is that this is sabotage at the moment, but it's something, you wonder about. John says metal fatigue isn't that obvious. In a lot of cases can happen without warning. Paula Thompson says, I would think it would take quite a while to inspect all the tracks. Yeah, I mean, that's a thought too, is, this little thing, this at one spot can cause a train to derail, and these tracks go on for, hundreds of miles. So you have to have a way to inspect. Julian Gilbert says Spain has a very good safety history on all its rail service. That's what Julian says. By the way, thanks to Joe9611. Thanks, Joe. Joe says, map hasn't changed in so long, people forgot it could. I think Joe is referring to Greenland. Also, thanks to Barry Seinfeld, who says, shocking how many chatters are okay with this. Maybe you're talking about the ice stuff? I'm not sure, Barry, that we were talking about before. Also, thanks so much to Gregory Brown. Gregory says, I spent 30 years railroading. Sometimes things just happen for no apparent reason. I mean, I would assume that, I'm not a railway expert. I would have to assume that there's believed to be adequate inspections for these things. I don't know how all the technology works. But again, you want to make sure it's something like this is not going to happen again. Bones US says, who are we to criticize them? We don't even have high-speed rail yet. Look at California. Billions spent, nothing happened. I don't know the whole history of that. Hold on a second here. C. Serwin says, the crash is terrible and completely unacceptable. Okay. I know I don't want to get into it right now. There's been some stuff where the Trump administration has canceled funding for rail in California. I don't know the whole history of it. You can Google it. That's a press release about it from last August. I think what I am going to do is, check a couple more comments here. And hold on a second here. Crease 19 breaking news says it's the exact same way it happened in Poland. There's a part of the train track missing. There was that train crash in Poland back in November, where I believe Polish officials suspected Russian involvement. Again, I haven't heard, if I remember that, I remember we covered that. I'm not going to go back to that now, but I haven't heard anybody, again, that I would consider reliable say that they believe this was sabotage in Spain. Our viewer Julia wrote in, and Julia said that Sky News reports that Trump talked to Keir Starmer and said he may have been misinformed about the motivation for deploying European troops to Greenland. Thanks for Julia for mentioning that. Okay. Guys, I think what I'm going to do is we talked a bunch about Greenland in Minneapolis, but I need to eat something at the moment, and we covered a few things. So I think I'm going to start wrapping up this live stream, but if there's something big tonight, I can come back on the air. President Trump, by the way, is at the college football national championship game. Just so you know. President Trump is there. All right, so I really appreciate people tuning into the stream, and again, as things develop, we can do more coverage. Yeah, some people asked about Iran. We just didn't get into it in this stream. Maybe we'll do another stream on Iran soon. Doesn't mean I'm not covering it all. It's just, you know, for the purposes of this stream, we focused on some other things. So I really appreciate people being here, and I'll keep an eye out for other developments. And also a lot of people, thanks for writing in with your comments. We read a lot of comments today, which I like being able to do. So appreciate people tuning in and also writing in and sending me news updates. And if you want, subscribe, follow the channel, Agenda Free TV. We cover all kinds of live breaking news without an agenda. Certainly the Minneapolis and Greenland stories, I expect not to be going away anytime soon. So we'll see how these develop and probably end up doing more coverage on those. But subscribe, follow Agenda Free TV. Also, I will post news updates on my X account, which is @Lookner on X. You can follow me over there if you want, @Lookner. And let's see. I should mention I'm going to be traveling tomorrow. So if there's stuff that happens tomorrow, I'll post that I can't cover it. So just a heads up. I'm going to be traveling tomorrow. Every so often I will travel somewhere, but I'll bring my agenda-free TV stuff with me so I can cover stuff where I'm going. Once I get there, I have my miniature set up. But tomorrow, if stuff is going on, you may not see me, but I'll post about it. And then I can cover stuff when I get there. Also, while traveling, I will also be posting, as I do when I go away. I don't just bring my agenda-free TV stuff with me. I have a personal channel called Lookner on YouTube and Look Nerd on Twitch, and I will post some stuff. That's where I post personal stuff, travel stuff, and whatever, so you can check that out if you want. There'll be some stuff posted over there. But again, I am bringing my setup with me. Sometimes people say vacation, but my plan is to basically be on agenda-free TV just as much as I normally would, but be able to do it somewhere else so I can, in between, kind of check out somewhere else. So again, just a heads up to people. But if you want, check out the personal channel Lookner on YouTube, Look Nerd on Twitch, because I will be posting some additional content over there. Let's see here. Hey, by the way, thanks to Joe9611. Thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate that. Also, our member Raymond, Louis Raymond. And always questioning our member. And John, NR6GG. Thanks, John, for your support. Very much appreciated. Hey, shout out to our moderators. The moderators are fantastic. And they're the ones that allow us to have the chat rooms here. We could not have it without our moderators. So huge thanks to our moderators for being here. People like Ruth over on YouTube, Roberts May Queen, Leslie Ladyhawk, and all of our other YouTube moderators, our Twitch moderators, such as LB Prairie Don, Idaho Star, Matthew Kohai 3, and Surly Dev, Linda Belk, Larry Misha on X, Facebook, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley, Paul Anderson, all of our other moderators there. Huge thanks to our moderators. And thanks so much to everybody who donated. That's what allows this channel to be on the air, is your support. So huge thanks for supporting the channel. If you ever want to donate to the channel, it's agendafree.tv, agendafree.tv. But let me make sure I got everybody. But I really, really appreciate it. Oh, Game Granny. I didn't thank Game Granny over on Twitch. Thank you, Game Granny, for subscribing. Hey, another way to find out when we're live, if you're on X, follow us on X at AgendaFreeTV. I always post there when we're going live. I post updates about the channel there at AgendaFreeTV on X. We also have a chat where you can chat with other viewers. Oh, the notifications. Turn on the channel notifications. I never know when big news is going to happen. I'm going to have to rush on the air. To make sure you don't miss a stream, we have our own notification system. It works great. You sign up. If it's free, you sign up once, and you get sent a notification every time. The mods will post a link to the notifications in the chat. You can also, this is our own system we have, which works the best. We do it through Discord. And you can also find the link to sign up for the notifications in the description of this video on YouTube and Facebook. And if you do click on that, if you do sign that link for to sign up for the notifications, you will also see an option. We have a free chat on Discord where some of our viewers, you can chat with other viewers when we're not on the air, our Discord chat. So with the same link, you can check out the Discord chat if you want. Thanks so much to our Discord mods who moderate the Discord chat. I really appreciate that. And also shout out to... Oh, not shout out to. Heads up to people watching on YouTube. I would suggest turning on our YouTube notifications. Another good way to find out when we're live. To turn on the YouTube notifications, you need to subscribe to the channel and then click this bell and choose all notifications. If you're already subscribed, make sure you click the bell and choose all notifications. Big thanks to our Twitch subscribers who support the channel, like Macon Bacon, Manchester is Red Forever, Emilian, Douthis, Wall Street, Shaggy, Matthew Kohai 3, CC, Game Granny, Battle Him Finn, S Stern 42, and Gonzalez. Thanks, Gonzalez, for subscribing, and all of our other subscribers over there. Sandy Doggo, thanks for being a subscriber. And Valor2 and Bogan and all of our other subscribers on Twitch. Huge thanks for subscribing over there. Our Facebook subscribers, thank you so much. People like Helen Anderson, Michael Clayton, Sharon Klassen Goslin, Kristen McConnell Gates, Robert Rial II, Kay Lowry Body, Margaret Riley, Jennifer Ellers, Christy Claft, and all of our other subscribers. Thank you so much for subscribing over there and supporting the channel. And our YouTube members, people like, Fred Flintstone, Evelyn in Maine, Ken Lance, UV Lightning, CAC, Benny Hill, Cherry Cola, Bernard Tappy, Silent Hero, Raymond, Louis Raymond, Dwayne Big Dude, and all of our other viewers. Really appreciate everybody being there. Michelle Batten, Juliana Martin, Maxie Puig, Barry Eisler, Julie Shields, Paula Thompson over on Facebook. Bite A on Twitch, D George, Grant P, 74P, thank you. Gina Pina. Factory Rejects. Medallion, thank you. LeBron is king over there on X. Don Co on X, thanks for watching over there. All of our other X viewers. Gulf War Vet. All right, so wrapping this up, if there's big news tonight, if there's unexpected big news, I can cover it tonight, and we will have more coverage in the days to come. All right. So that is it for now. Thank you again for watching our live stream, and we will see you soon with more live breaking news coverage right here at Agenda Free TV.